Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Amplify with Adam. Today we have Tristan here from MRD Machine. Tristan, really excited to have you on, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome,
Happening.
awesome. Well, hey, so give us a little introduction to you, to tell us who Tristan is and MRD Machine. I want to dig into. I've got a few questions for you, but we'd love for you to introduce yourself first.
Yeah, absolutely, man. My name's Tristan Lobb. On paper, I think I'm the vice president. Honestly, not quite sure what it looks like on paper. But yeah, I own and operate MRD Machine. It's a family business. It's me and my parents. I take care of all the quoting, programming, setup, stuff like that. And my mom typically runs the production stuff. My dad takes care of the repair side, kind of the manual side and everything.
That's awesome, man. So I actually didn't realize that it was a family business. So I'll add that kind of question and how it layers in. But I've got a little backstory on you here. The 1995, you guys were doing vintage motorcycle parts, and then we fast forward, close to what, 25 years later, 23, close to it, and we're a full on machine shop. So take me through that path a little bit. Kind of what was that? What was that
Yeah.
growth like?
Yeah. So 1995, I wasn't around.
Yeah. I was gonna ask. I was gonna say, I didn't know if you just had a good skincare routine or what was going
right.
on. But,
yeah. So I was born in '98. Shop was already rolling, and I was probably sitting up there turning handles before I could talk. Really.
yeah.
Yeah. So basically, my dad had a shop. He's a merchant marine. He works on the big 1,000-foot container ships, and when he would get off rotation there, he'd come home and he'd be working on motorcycles, and Buddy would ask him to make a part, he'd make a part. So that was kind of like the premise of the shop for a good 10 or 15 years. And then, throughout the years, I kind of got involved. I would make little odds and ends, little model cannons, stuff like that. And then I actually started taking some CNC classes over at local college. And that got me kicked off into CNC, started doing that. I worked at an actual CNC shop for about 3 or 4 years, actually. And I just kind of got tired of getting yelled at by the boss. So I figured I'd start my own thing. And we ended up buying a CNC machine back in February of 2019, bought a brand new Haas. And yeah, we've been making parts ever since.
So you buy a brand new Haas just in time for a global pandemic to kick off.
Yeah, great timing. We had excellent timing.
So talk to me a little bit about, you've got this, kind of hobby, right? And you're bringing in some new skills to it. Or I guess your dad has this hobby and you're bringing in some new skills to it. You're actually starting it as a business. And then right as 2020 hits, what did 2020 look like for you guys? Were you guys, pulling in a lot of, was it still working with the same folks, on the motorcycles, or how were you able to diversify, or what did that look like?
So the motorcycles, all of that stuff is really focused around the manual side. I've made an occasional part here and there on the CNC, mostly just stuff that you can't do easily on manual. The CNC side, we really focused on getting clients geared towards the aerospace industry, marine industry. We want to branch in the medical industry, but that's just not something we're into yet. So 2020 was really, I would say it was a heavy hitter, but to be honest with you, it's not like we had 5 or 10 years of past clients to really compare anything. So it was new territory to us.
Yeah.
So I know, looking around, especially just reading through a lot of forums online, Facebook, there's a lot of shops closing their doors. And the fact that we're able to stay open, I think really says quite a bit about where we would actually be had the pandemic not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And now that we're coming out of it a little bit, right? Not to get into too much on what's going on, but it does feel like there's some momentum, right? So are you sensing that? Like, are you guys seeing that in kind of your workload and the customers coming in, now in Q1 of 2021?
We haven't seen anything quite yet outside of Xometry. Xometry probably does 80 to 90% of our work, or we do 80 to 90% of our work is Xometry.
Yeah.
So as of the first of the year, we definitely have seen an increase. We did in February, so in January and February, we did about a third of the amount of work we did in 2020 was Xometry.
Whoa.
So, I mean, we've really stacked it up. I mean, this year we're projecting 150% growth from last year just with Xometry. So I don't know if Xometry has seen an increase, and that's why we've seen an increase. But outside of Xometry, just left to our own clients, we've had maybe an increase 10 to 15%.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see certain industries come back, right? Like aerospace was somewhat down in 2020 and is starting to come back, it feels like. You know, and so there's other ones like medical was obviously huge in 2020 and is kind of staying strong, right? So we're seeing you know, definitely a positive swell in momentum and you know, kind of the early 2021. So that makes sense that you would see it as well. So now I do want to get into, so on your website, which loved being able to cruise through that. You know, you've got, we don't ask, is this possible to make? But we ask, what is the most cost-effective solution for this to be made? Because there is no impossible task with the right people behind you. I like that a lot, right? I think that's a cool message. So it sounds like you guys like to be a part of like the DFM feedback and kind of the you know, just overarching like design of the product, right? Where do you get a little bit of that? You know, do you have an engineering background, or is it just something that you've gotten a passion for and you've started to learn as you're starting to bring in kind of your machining expertise?
So I don't have any professional engineering background. I never went to school for anything, but our motorcycle parts that we make, everything that we make is pretty much between 1920 and 1970. Anything after that, you know, you can get aftermarket parts, whatever. So a lot of our stuff is from a lot of the parts that we make are for bikes that are from that era. And the engineering back then really wasn't quite where it's at now. So applying a lot of modern engineering techniques to the older stuff makes them run better, makes them run cooler, whatever it is. And using kind of the knowledge that I gained from that, that's where I've applied it to new product lines. Someone comes to me with a product idea, and we go from pen and paper on a napkin in a restaurant to an actual finished part. We talk about, you know, well, if we change the tolerances on this, the price comes down, but now it's not going to function exactly the way we want it. So let's find our good balance, good ratio here. So yeah, I would say that a fair amount of what I do outside of Xometry with my own clients is product development and kind of figuring out the processes that we need to take.
That's awesome because it's so hands-on, you know, and I'm sure that the clients sense that, right? Like that's something that's like investing your time in their product and making sure that it's the best it can be. So, you know, that has to imbue a sense of loyalty to the shop, especially when it comes out good on the other end, right?
So, absolutely.
Now I see, let's see, is it 4 new machines or 3 or 4 new machines and a couple employees in the last year? So sounds like you guys have grown a decent amount. Is that, you know, you're talking about 150% growth in just work with Xometry this year. Do you foresee kind of growth and like, is there any new machines that you're looking at in 2021 or any new like, you know, quality technology that's kind of caught your eye? Like, what does the future look like for MRD Machine?
So we definitely have had some growth from when we started back in 2019. We actually officially started back in like 2018 with a used machine, and you know, you run it too hard, it alarms out, it dies. It just wasn't good. And working with that, that's when we decided, okay, if we're gonna do this, we need to get a good machine. So I should actually update that, because since then we've sold a couple machines and kind of refined what we have. We now have 2 machines. We have a 5-axis mill and a 2-axis lathe, which, yes, it's less machines, but we're now more capable for doing more complicated parts.
Than we were. Especially the 5th axis, you know, that's huge.
As far as 2021, unless we get some contract out of thin air, we're not really looking to expand into any more machines. If anything, we'll be upgrading machines we have. I'd like to get some more options purchased on my machine through spindle coolant. You know, maybe look at a different 5th axis. The one that we have now works great, but it's very bulky, takes up a lot of room on the table. So kind of refining what we have. As far as the next machines that we're actually looking at investing into, I would like to look at a Mazak turning center, Y-axis lathe, so we can do some live tooling, Y-axis stuff. I'd like to look at a CMM, because you can make parts all day long, but if you can't inspect them, they're really no good, you know?
And CMM is like one of the most popular answers here. So is there any brand that you're kind of looking at? Because it feels like it's a really like kind of pertinent thing that folks are looking for.
In my 20 minutes of research, I've heard really good things about Zeiss.
You're an expert.
I'm sorry?
So you're an expert after the 20 minutes, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I've been on Facebook for 10 minutes, forums for 10, we're good.
Yeah.
So Zeiss has software called Calypso, which works like CAD software. I can basically import my part into that file or into that program, and then actually make probing tool paths off of that part in the program, rather than sitting there with a joystick and coming in and manually beating spots and stuff like that. So the software side is looking really good on that. The price tag, not quite as good. You know, you kind of get what you pay for. And I mean, Zeiss is top of the line. So it's either between like a Zeiss Duramax, or we're looking like a Mitutoyo, something like that. Because I know they also have automated software. I just haven't looked too far into that.
Yeah. No, like I said, that's an insanely popular answer. So I appreciate you sharing a little insight there. Now, one thing I've always asked is if you were talking to like kind of you in 2018, right? So like you're just about to take this leap, or someone that's thinking about taking this leap, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've obviously learned, I'm assuming, some lessons over the last like year and a half or so, right? Running, operating a business, growing things. What's one piece of advice that you pass along? And it could be small business advice, or it could be, you know, someone looking to get into machining and you know, some of the technical work. But you know, what would you pass along if you're speaking to your younger self or someone that's interested?
Oh, if only I could do that. Rule number one: don't buy a brand new machine. Here's why. Yes, you have a 1-year warranty. Normally, stuff doesn't break in the first year. It's after the first year. Usually, the first week after you get out of your warranty, where stuff starts breaking. If I could give myself one piece of advice, I would say look at buying a used machine.
Yeah.
I would say 99% of the work that I've done, Xometry included, everything could have been done on a machine that cost $40,000, and the machine that I bought was 110.
Yeah.
Granted, it's much more capable, and I am better set up for future jobs. But until you actually have jobs to justify that, it really doesn't make sense to put that much change out for that big of a machine. So yeah, I would say start small. Just start small and grow organically rather than taking a loan out, because
that's what I was going to say is it's really, you know, it starts small, but it's also like slow and steady growth and growing organically, right? So you buy the machine for the work you have now, not for what you need potentially in the future. Now, it's great if you can justify that and you can grow into it, right? But I think that's really great advice is, you know, don't bite off more than you can chew and kind of grow organically. So
absolutely. And I think that applies to this technology you look at as well. Because when I started CNC at the school, when I started taking classes, we were just learning simple 3-axis stuff. Everything was hand programmed. We weren't doing, you know, we weren't even like ball tracking. We weren't even surfacing stuff. Mm-hmm. It was all holes and contours and stuff like that. A couple of chamfers if you're lucky. And that's basically all that I did for the first 2 or 3 years, where I really like developed the concepts, really got, you know, everything figured out. And then when I bought this machine, I bought the 4th axis, and I was able to actually experiment on my own time. And I'm glad that I bought the 4th axis and used that for about a year instead of just going straight for a 5th axis. Because if I went for a 5th axis, then my mind, I wouldn't have been able to do it without a lot of crashes. So yeah, I would say like definitely grow organically price wise, and grow organically as well with your knowledge. There's nothing wrong with picking up a 5-axis to start out with, but don't buy a 5-axis expecting to do these crazy 5-axis tool paths.
Yeah.
When you don't even know how to do 4-axis tool paths, because now you're adding just another level of difficulty. So
no, I think that makes a ton of sense, right? Like that would be a huge leap. I wouldn't even know what I was looking at probably on the first day, right? So I think that's great advice. Well, Tristan, man, I've so enjoyed having you on, and I think that's fantastic advice passing along. And it's been fun talking about the MRD machine journey. I think you guys have an interesting one, and one where anybody interested in the manufacturing space can learn a few lessons, because it sounds like you guys are really cruising going into 2021. So congratulations there, and thank you for spending a little time with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Amplify with Adam. Tristan, we'll talk to you soon, man.
Sounds good.